Welcome to the kitchen. I'm glad you're here. I'm Angela and we are trying 2 new soups today. Kitchen kind of feels like it's in chaos mode this time of year. I've got jars that I preserved on other days still behind me waiting to be put away, and they'll probably be there another day or so. That's okay. They can sit there. I'm trying 2 soups today. From Beginner's Guide to Canning. I am really enjoying this book, and I have another one that I've mentioned very loosely from my memory. It's something like Not Your Mama's Canning book or something like that. So I am branching out of the typical ball preserving book, which, let me tell you, has really fantastic recipes and ideas in there. But sometimes it's nice to kind of branch out a little bit, and when you do, you find some new things you're excited for. I have done many different types of canning preservation recipes throughout the last 5 years. And I feel like once you see one person do it, you've seen it a million times. And so I'm not necessarily going to bring everything to you that I preserve here in my home. For instance, I am going to do some pickled, hot pickled peppers later today. I kind of feel like it's so simple. I don't know that I necessarily even need to show how to do it. I might one day, but I am positive there are a ton of videos out here just on this platform alone that you could go and watch somebody pickle some peppers. And so I want to bring to you maybe potentially some recipes that just aren't done a lot, or maybe they've not even been done at all. I have not really checked to see, but I know in the years that I've been doing this, I've not seen someone do one recipe very particularly. This other one probably could be found a couple times, but it's fun and it's new to me, so we're gonna give it a try. I have never canned anything with cabbage. Not chow chow, not anything soup wise. Cabbage is something that is brand new to me for canning. I love cabbage. I can eat it in various different forms. It's wonderful. So I figured as I was flipping through these 2 soups really caught my attention, and I thought, well, that would be a fun opportunity to see how I like cabbage pressure canned anyhow. So the first one we're going to do is called South African Style Vegetables with Northern Beans. In parentheses, it then says Chakalaka. Don't know if that's how it's pronounced, but it's a fun word, if nothing else. And this is going to make 3 quarts or 6 pints. And I am choosing to do quarts today. The only pints I have left in my house have to be reserved for my carrots. I literally have no more pints left after that. We gift a lot of jars away. A lot of times I do receive the jars back, but a lot of times I don't, and that's okay. I'm gifting it to someone. We may or may not even see each other again. My husband is notorious for doing that, and so of any size jars, pints are ones that I usually do have to repurchase, and I was really trying not to repurchase any jars this year, aside from, if you saw my Azure haul, I did get 1.5 pint jars because those are really difficult to come by, and so now I found someone to make them. I jumped right on that. So I'm not doing pints, even though I probably would have been more inclined to do this in a pint, but that's okay. We're gonna work with what we have. 3 quarts. I have a full pressure canner, 7 quarts, so we'll see how many it gives me. I tend to be heavy-handed on my measurements, and so something tells me I might end up with more than 3 quarts. But either way, I'm gonna split these with my mom. She will definitely enjoy both of these. At least I have a feeling she will. So South African style vegetables with northern beans. I have everything set up here for me to do that. And then the next one is cabbage soup. Now I know cabbage soup has been done probably a lot of times, but again, I've never done it. And so I have everything set up then on this side for me to do it. I'm going to do both of them here in this video. This one, let's see, the cabbage soup says it's going to make 7 quarts or 14 pints. So that's going to do a full canner. And so even more better that I'm doing these both at the same time, because if for some reason I do only end up with 3 or 4 quarts of my African soup, and I end up still with more, because again, I'm very heavy-handed on my measurements, with pressure canning. Water bath canning, you do have to be pretty careful with what you're doing. But so if it's an imbalance, I will have extra spare jars, which will work out perfectly. The other reason I'm doing both of these recipes today in the same day, I pretty much have the same ingredients aside from different herbs and spices and maybe small variants of the differences in the ingredient list. But if I'm going to be shredding and chopping carrots and onions and cabbage, I should just do it one day, one time for whatever it is I need to make. So as I was going through and making my very long, hey, I've got lots of hopes this year with canning everything and all things, I kind of group things that are like-minded together. So this way I'm not canning cabbage soup today and in 2 more days I still am back chopping up cabbage and feeling like I've, rinse and repeat. I've done this already. So I do things at the same time, the same day. We had a real big canning session day just the other day. I brought you along for. It's a 3-part. We did 3 different water bath canning recipes that day. I had my water bath canner out, and I figured we're also doing a lot of vinegar brine type of ingredients. Let's just do what I need to do with the vinegar. Let's do it in one day, get it all done. And so we actually have these on the table here. We've got the candied jalapenos, and then I have my corn relish still sitting over here behind me, and pineapple. So go ahead and check out those videos if you've not seen them yet. Very successful seal rate, so I'm happy about that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to wash everything. I'm going to get all of the really boring stuff done, and then we'll come together and we'll discuss what the process is and how this is all going to come together. And we'll find out how many jars do I actually get. I don't know. I'm hoping for even amounts for each, so that way I can split with my mom. I am also choosing to not do huge batches of either of these because I don't know if I'm going to like them. I don't want to have, 14 or 21 jars on my shelf of something I end up not liking. So definitely keep that in mind when you're trying something new. You might end up loving it and kind of regretting you didn't make a ton, but trust me, that is much more preferable than making a ton of something and having absolutely zero idea how you're even going to get through it. Don't waste your time, don't waste your effort, don't waste that money, and certainly don't take up the valuable space of a jar for something you don't even enjoy. So we're doing small batches today. Lastly, I chose cabbage soup because my mind is kind of working now and branching out onto, I started my journey as a ingredient canner. So I have tomatoes, I have carrots, I have, all my single ingredient jars sitting in my pantry. And then I started realizing I could probably save myself a little bit of time, also free up some space if I combined certain flavors and things together and opened one jar rather than 3, so on and so forth. And then I got into meals in a jar and really, flavored meat and amping up the flavor, not doing just plain chicken and just plain beef. It has really transformed my time here in the kitchen, where I can still enjoy cooking, but it cuts down the time and it's still homemade, potentially even most of it homegrown or home raised. And cabbage soup, I feel like, is one of those where if I wanted to and I enjoy it as a soup, I could certainly do that for a dinner one night. I could take it to work with me and have it for lunch. But I'm also thinking all of that flavor in one jar, I could use it as a meal starter, as a meal maker, and just add a couple things to it. Cabbage soup immediately makes my mouth start watering, and I'm thinking about stuffed cabbage. One of my absolute favorite recipes that my mom makes is stuffed cabbage. I make it several times a year, and I always make a big batch, and then I will freeze whatever's left over just in little individual, and I'll do that a lot of times. I will take that for lunch with my instant mashed potatoes that I make, or even rice, however you want to, serve it. But I'm thinking this could be a instant deconstructed stuffed cabbage dinner one night if I really wanted to. And so just kind of the wheels are turning a little bit with that. And then the South African soup, I'm just excited because all the ingredients sound like something that would be absolutely divine and 100% up the alley of my mom's taste. So especially with her starting her vegan journey again. So yeah, so we're gonna get started. I'm gonna wash the cabbage, wash the carrots. I got these carrots from my Azure haul. A little bit of a regret in the purchase of these carrots. Years past, I always did number 2 carrots. This year, this bag definitely feels like they're number 2. That's okay. It's a little bit more of a lengthy process for me because they're so small, and a lot of them are just, which is the point of them being number 2s, they're just really kind of crazy and wonky in their shape. But no judgment here, carrot. We love you all the same. It'll be fine. I will use you gladly. I will feel thankful that I was able to get that purchase, and we will just be happy about it. But I might reconsider and it's not even that much more money. I just have always done number 2s, and this year the bag is not that great. But nonetheless, my peppers and tomatoes are homegrown, and we're gonna get everything cleaned, chopped, and then we'll get going to actually making the soup. I'm kind of thinking, the South African soup says to shred the carrots. Cabbage soup says to chop. So I'm envisioning like maybe circles or quarter circles, like, diced or whatever. But I actually think I would prefer to have them shredded in both. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to just shred up all of my carrots. I have my food processor out to help me with much of the chopping today because girlfriend's tired from all the other past days, and I'm making my food processor do the work. But yeah, I think I'm going to shred them. I think I would prefer that, especially if I'm going to use my cabbage soup as like a meal starter further down the road for something different. I would much prefer the shreds rather than the chopped carrots. So I will make sure at some point here before we get started, I'll probably run through the list of ingredients so that you know what the true recipe says, and then you'll be able to see how I'm tweaking it for my family and our likes and maybe some of our needs later on down the road. Recipes are sort of just, you know, suggestions, in my opinion. Absolutely tweak it in whichever way you need, so long as you're not making major changes and adding things that don't belong in canning. And then with water bath canning, you really need to be careful, and I do go over discussing that in a different video on, I think, the corn relish, maybe? Nope, I think it was my salsa. Yes, it was my salsa. Talking about how you can add things, more of something, as long as you're taking away more. You know, you don't want to make your acid and low acid foods imbalanced. But pressure canning, you do have a much more flexibility. You just don't want to add things into your jars that don't belong at all, ever. So whether I choose to dice it, chop it, mince it, or shred it makes zero difference in the safety of my outcome of the canning. It's just preference on how I want to consume it and use it for meals down the road. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to go ahead and get it all shredded up. I have a scrap bowl here. I definitely recommend that at all times when you are chopping and working in an abundance. It's either a chicken bowl or a compost bowl. However, I will say, I know many people do this. I actually think I'm going to be in the minority with this. So get ready for the, you know, can't believe she doesn't do this. I did at one point in time, and I just found it a bit of a waste of space in my freezer. You could save all of your scraps from your carrots, pepper scraps, even onions, the peelings, garlic, you know, all the stuff that you otherwise would be throwing away. A lot of people put inside of a bag and put it in their freezer. And then when they go to make chicken stock, vegetable stock, beef stock, whatever, they'll take that out of the freezer and use that as like a flavor component. And I did that for many years. And I don't know, I just got to the point where I started kind of analyzing, thinking, I don't care if my chicken stock has some flavor of onion or carrots or anything, quite honestly, outside of just chicken or beef or whatever it is I'm making. I'm not drinking it. I'm putting it into something where I've got many other flavor components going on, and it's freed up quite a bit of space because I don't make stock even once a month. I mean, I make it when I need it. I certainly go through it quicker during certain times of the year over others, of course, but otherwise I just have bags and bags piling up to where finally it's usually the scraps that's telling me I need to start emptying this out, and now I need to make broth that my shelf in my pantry is telling me I don't necessarily need. So I don't do that. I give it to my chickens now, or this will just go into the compost. They've had so many scraps lately, and they don't eat peppers. Do your chickens eat peppers? Mine could care less over peppers, and they shouldn't eat onions. So I'm throwing it all in a bowl, and it's going into my mill over here that will make beautiful compost for me. So in case you're wondering, that's where I stand with that. However, I will say, depending on how you use your stock, absolutely 100% continue doing that if that's, you know, what works for you. So our cabbage soup is 3 tablespoons of olive oil, 1 yellow onion chopped, 6 garlic cloves minced, 4 quarts of chicken or vegetable broth, 1 head of cabbage chopped, 6 carrots peeled and chopped. We're gonna do the shredded though. 4 celery stalks chopped. You learned this about me just the other day when I did a canning session. I think the only place celery belongs is in the trash. But if you enjoy it and you don't mind it, it can go in that recipe. Go right ahead. It will not go into mine. 2 pints of traditional stewed tomatoes or 2 14-ounce cans. Give me 1 second. I'm not using that. I am using the crushed tomatoes with basil. I used this in my chicken tortilla soup and I used it in my taco soup. I have a couple more cans left that I really am just trying to get through. So it's gonna go in here. Now, I am adding some of the peppers that I pureed up is gonna go in here too, because traditional stewed tomatoes has some onions and peppers stewed in with it. So I will add a little bit of that. 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. I'm going to substitute for just plain white distilled vinegar. I don't like apple cider vinegar. It might be okay in this type of a process, but I'm not gonna chance it. 1 tablespoon of sugar, 1 teaspoon salt, which is, of course, is always optional. 1 teaspoon of dried thyme and some pepper. The South African soup. The ingredients are as followed. 3 tablespoons extra virgin olive oil. I will be using avocado oil. 1 medium onion diced, check. 6 garlic cloves minced. 1 3-inch piece fresh ginger grated. I explained this in my tikka masala video. I don't like ginger. I can tolerate it in a few ways. And a dish like this where there's a lot of other flavors going on is fine. So I have canned, grated, minced ginger and once I open it, I put it in a freezer bag like this and I break off pieces and just keep it in the freezer until I need it again. Otherwise, fresh ginger would go bad. I was buying the tubes for a while that you keep in the fridge from Aldi, but I don't use it as often and it started to get a little funky on me, so this method works much better. And 2 tablespoons yellow curry powder. I had made up a curry rice seasoning blend. It's fabulous. I don't recall exactly what's in it. I don't know where my straight curry powder currently is, so I'm just gonna use that. It's got just lots of other good flavors in it, so why not? 2 teaspoons of Hungarian paprika, 2 teaspoons of cayenne pepper, some salt, a medium head of cabbage sliced, 4 cups. That's what's going in. I don't know how many cups it is, but we're just gonna call it good. 3 large tomatoes diced, or about 2 cups. 1 medium yellow bell pepper chopped and 1 medium red bell pepper chopped. I just used whatever peppers I had from my garden. A large carrot shredded, about 1 cup, and 2 cups of chicken or vegetable stock. This last ingredient is a little interesting. 1 15-ounce can of Great Northern beans, or 1 pint of home canned Great Northern beans. So beans have to pressure can in quarts for 90 minutes. So I have my can here. I don't have pints, I have quarts. again, I'm kind of heavy-handed on things, and so, you know, it'll be fine. And at first, when I read it, I thought, oh, I grabbed my dry Great Northern beans. But it wants actual canned Great Northern beans, and I feel semi-hesitant to do that because these break down anymore. You know, they're gonna just be nothing but mush. And then I thought to myself, well, perhaps maybe that's the point. Maybe that's going to make this a more creamy kind of a soup. It doesn't necessarily say it's a soup, I guess. I just am assuming it's a soup. So I don't really know what it is and necessarily how it's supposed to be served, but I'm gonna do what the recipe tells me to, because every time I make a new recipe, I follow it completely to the recipe. But I might make one alteration, but I'm gonna wait and see how brothy of a soup or whatever this is comes out. I might still add some dried Great Northern beans to each of my jars, just so I have some beans with a little bit of a bite to it, while the canned beans over here acted as a creamy alternative. When I was vegan years ago, that was one of the tricks to making things creamy, was using canned beans. And of course, when it breaks down, it can definitely lend a creamy texture. So we'll see how it comes out, and we'll go from there. So the first thing we need to do is saute the onions, oil, ginger, and all of our spices together for 5 to 8 minutes, just giving the garlic and onions a head start. So that's what we're going to get going now. And I'm going to try and decide which pot I want to use. I think we're going to do, theoretically, they might be the same size. I just got a tall pot and a short pot, but I'm going to use this. I'm going to use that for the cabbage soup. I have much more cabbage for that one. All right, so let's get that started. Onions going in. All right, let's go ahead and add the garlic. Okay, and to really get our spices bloomed in the African soup, we are going to add in the spices while this is kind of sauteing. So we're going to start with 2 tablespoons, it smells so good, of the curry. One teaspoon of each Hungarian sweet paprika. I don't usually measure. Sometimes when I do, it feels a little foreign to me, but again, I want to make this recipe as close to the way it's telling me to as possible. If heat really bothers you, then you know, you can monitor the amount of cayenne you're going to use. I like things spicy. We're going to do a teaspoon of salt. This is likely just to help all of those flavors really come together and develop. You can, of course, change the amount if you need to. And we're gonna do ginger. Now, I don't really know how much a 3-inch amount of ginger would be. My guess is going to be maybe about a tablespoon. I'm just gonna kind of eyeball here. There we go. Get this back into the freezer. All right, I'm gonna get everything else into this African soup pot. We're gonna get our cabbage in there. The diced tomatoes I used from the garden, but you could use canned if you need to. About 2 cups of the peppers, and I'm just going to do, I'm gonna reserve some for my other soup here. I'm just gonna eyeball it. Some shredded carrot. When I am making canning recipes, I don't use my home canned chicken stock. I reserve that for things I'm cooking in the moment for dinner that day. I just use beef base or chicken base to make my broth. And my Great Northern beans. I didn't drain it 100% or rinse them, but I did drain off as much of the water in here as I could. It doesn't say to drain it. It doesn't say not to, so that's just how I'm gonna do it. I shredded it up very just roughly. It's going to be breaking down and cooking quite a bit in the pressure canning process, so after I make it the first time, I might decide next time that I want to maybe chop it up more finely or into smaller pieces, so we'll see what comes of that. My crushed tomatoes. It's probably way more than I need, but it's going in. Just go for it. Again, heavy-handed. Now carrots do tend to sweeten things up a little bit, so I'm going to reserve putting sugar in this one and see if maybe I need it or not. Pepper blend. I'm gonna do 2 tablespoons of vinegar. One teaspoon of thyme. Four quarts of chicken broth or vegetable. This African soup is amazing. Holy cow. It is so good. It's definitely got some heat to it. Curry usually does. Oh my gosh. I'm gonna wish I canned more of this. I just know it, but oh, I'm so happy to have however many jars we get from it. I'm happy to have it on my shelf. So this is gonna be so good. So it's definitely making a mess. shorter pieces of cabbage probably would have been easier, but that's okay. I'm not worried about it. You can clean up a mess. I'm hoping you can see okay. That looks incredible. Oh my gosh, I actually cannot wait to have this on my shelf. I also think I'm going to put this down in my regular recipe book, because certainly you can make it fresh for dinner on any given day. It doesn't need to be only a canning recipe. This is going to be so good. So the recipe originally said it was going to make 3 quarts. I'm on my 3rd. Let's see how much we have left over. Four quarts with that left over, and I will enjoy this for lunch tomorrow, no doubt. Perfect, absolutely perfect. Needs nothing else. Ground up some hamburger meat, or open a can of already ground meat would work too. Ladle this over top of that, and with some rice, so good. This is going to be so amazing. Got those all locked and loaded. They are gonna go for 90 minutes, and just as soon as they are ready to come out of the canner, I will let you see how they look. I'm gonna go enjoy the rest of that cabbage soup, and I'm gonna put away the little bit of the African, South African chakalaka into the fridge, because that will go really good tomorrow. We're having pork for dinner. What is it? Pork tenderloin for dinner, and I think that will go nicely with some rice on the side with that. So we'll be back in a jiffy. Okay, that is the African, what do we call it? Chakalaka, I think. It looks really good. I'm not surprised that I had siphoning. I did have a hard time controlling the pressure on this canner. I don't know what it is from day to day. I could have absolutely 0 siphoning and no issues, and then out of the blue somewhere one day I have an issue controlling it. So I don't know. That's the cabbage soup. This jar is sealed. It's active. Can you see how it's bubbling inside of there? That looks delicious. Well, I think that's pretty good, and I'm really happy you came along with me today while we tried out these 2 new soups, and I hope that you give them a try and put them on your pantry shelf. If you are someone who's lucky to grow cabbage, then you probably have an abundance. You probably already do cabbage soup, but maybe you'll give this African chakalaka a try. It smells amazing. If you like curry, then I would definitely suggest you give this a try. It's going to be really, really good over white rice with some naan bread warmed up. Ooh. Yeah, that was the last jar. I was like, what jar was it? So I think those are all sealed except for the one, which I'm expecting. So we'll have that with dinner on Sunday. So thank you for stopping by. We did 2 canning projects together today, and you saw how we took all the same ingredients, but we made 2 separate dishes from it, and we did 1 big canning batch. And so and all the work was in chopping everything, and unfortunately there's only so many things we can do to kind of make that move along quicker, you know. So all in all, was not very bad at all. So I hope to see you again the next time we're in the kitchen. I have more projects coming up, and I hope I'll see you there.